The Tau, a faction defined by their unity, their hope, and their ability to work with other Xenos factions and even incorporate them into their society. They are a people with advanced technology and point of view on the galaxy, with a way of war that is unique amongst the other races. At least, that's what they used to be. Today I want to talk about the Tau from Warhammer 40,000 and how much they've changed over the last decade. Before we get into that, a word from our sponsor, Secondhand Geek. Secondhand Geek is a web store where you can buy secondhand hobby supplies, games, Warhammer, basically anything. Like I said, they have Warhammer, but they also have bolt action, magic, board games, glue and paint, and supplies like that. It's a great place to find some discounted 40k or fantasy or Sigmar, and it's also a great place to offload your 40k, Sigmar, or fantasy that you don't want anymore. I recently ordered a squad of old classic Harlequins. I'm quite excited about that. It all went smoothly, all very easy checkout. I highly recommend it. So if you're looking for discounted 40k or basically any game ever, go check them out. The Tau came out as a new faction in Warhammer, and not without backlash. They were an oddity, as they lacked the grimdark aspects of the other factions. Where was the morally grey? Where were the evil intentions? Well, simply put, they just weren't there. The Tau were created as a hopeful species in a galaxy drowned in sorrow. They were the first to see quick advancement, being an opposite to the Imperium. As the Empire of Man corroded away, succumbing to an agonizingly slow death, the Tau came in the front and began their destiny. The main hatred of the faction stemmed largely from the fact that they were not grimdark enough. But despite this, lots of people still loved them, including myself. They were very unique and alien, even sporting multiple races within their faction, the Kroot being the first and then the Vespid after that. Of course, they always had more auxiliaries in the lore, and people have always hoped to get more in the tabletop, and we still do. The army was coined as a combined arms playstyle with great ability to conduct mobile warfare with a large variety of units. These units, especially battlesuits, were extremely customizable, with near infinite combinations of upgrades. Along with this, the recommended and intended playstyle of the army came with it a lot of variety. One could play a classic gun line with fire warriors, sniper drones, broadsides, and hammerheads, led by an ethereal and aided by some Kroot mercenaries for close combat emergencies. You could then create an entirely different army, one made for rapid deployment, sporting devilfish, carried pathfinders, and fire warriors, piranhas, crisis suits, vespid, and even a barracuda or tiger shark. The old white dwarf, back there, has a lot of cool archetypes in it. These are only two of the archetypes, of course, and these could be mixed and matched, and you could basically make any style of army that you wanted. Is very cool, very unique. Regardless of style, the Tau were always shown to be an army of variety, with a plethora of units, perhaps having a style of warfare similar to many armed forces of our world. Tanks, transports, battlesuits, inspired leaders, alien auxiliaries, and more. They truly were unique and unlike any other faction, the closest likely being the Eldar. Off the table as well, they had a very unique society and caste system that showed the evolutionary differences in Tau, separated to all work as a cohesive people. They were a people without rebellion and without distrust. They were the closest one could find to a flourishing utopia in the setting. Of course, it had its flaws, and the treatment of auxiliaries was questionable at times, but that was perhaps an attempt to bring more grimdarkness to the faction. Another reason people hated the Tau was the lack of close combat, the alien race seeing it as unnecessary and barbaric. If you took Farsight, however, in 3rd edition, you can make your Tau army somewhat good in close quarters, at least as good as Guardsmen, which is one step below a Space Marine, so not bad. And of course, there is always the Grand Blade Master Aun Shi, one of the coolest characters in Warhammer. He also had some really cool rules. Overall, the faction had made its own niche in the setting, and it brought with it a different kind of grimdark. The Tau themselves posed little to no dark aspects, but what was dark was the situations they found themselves in. Here was this new hopeful people, wide-eyed and naive. The galaxy was theirs for the taking in the name of the greater good. The Ethereals in their infinite wisdom had united them, and they had shot forwards like no one before them. All this, though, leads to very classic 40k situations. The naivety of the Tau often thrust them into disastrous moments, which they learned from and overcome. Their diplomacy is a classic example. The Watercast attempted, and of course failed, to enter diplomacy with the Orcs, Tyranids, and Dark Eldar. Each ended in gruesome disaster, with the Dark Eldar fiasco resulting in an entire planet's population being stolen, and symbols created with corpses that one could see from orbit. If that isn't grimdark, I'm not sure what is. This created a very interesting contrast to the 40k setting, especially the Imperium. So, what happened? Well, these books happened. In the times of old, the reason Farsight left the Enclaves was a mystery, and a very cool one at that. I remember people discussing in my local store back in the days of 5th edition. One prevalent theory was that perhaps the Eldar made the Tau, and this was somehow connected to the Ethereals, and so Farsight learned this, and you get the idea. Regardless of what people thought, it was cool to root for Farsight and his Enclaves, and it was at the very least interesting to know the Tau had some kind of dark, scary secret. For the more free-spirited individuals, the Farsight Enclaves were a neat faction that held very little government, but still operated in the classical Tau harmony. Unfortunately, as Farsight got more and more novels, the mystery was unraveled, and the answer was blatantly lazy and boring. Turns out the Ethereals are evil. Turns out Tau society is nothing but a dictatorship with a surveillance state, and anyone who steps out of line will be lobotomized, sent to re-education camps, or simply disappear. These books go so far as to spit on the leader of the entire faction and makes him an idiotic, mustache-twirling, evil guy. Anva is the voice of the Tau people, the ethereal supreme, the master of the undying spirit, and he apparently lounges in his quarters and makes Tau off themselves with mind control. What incredible, splendid writing. What a cherry on top of my faction. What a great end to this mystery, right? And then to cap that all off, they just kill him in the Damocles Crusade, so... You know, it is what it is. His model's awesome, though, even if his rules always kind of sucked on the tabletop. But who cares? From here, every other mention of Tau Society in the Farsight books comes with a reminder that the Ethereals are evil, and Tau Society is built on nothing but lies, and you're gonna disappear if you say these things. The Enclaves pursue the true Tauva, and the Empire fights for nothing but power-hungry evil overlords. And so, the Grimdark aspect was brought to the town. They were reduced to basically the Imperium Lights, and their people are basically blue humans who make funny hand gestures. Not only the lore changed, though. Games Workshop seemingly discovers that people really like battlesuits. And so for the last 4 editions, the only advancements the Tau have seemingly made are just making bigger battlesuits. This of course barely fits with their style of war, and is a fairly obvious excuse to make knight-sized models and sell them for the Tau, and to give them that cool, sleek mech anime aesthetic, which is something they were made fun of for when they first came out. Now, often instead of seeing the unique ochre of the Tau with a variety of units, you see a sea of white paint and a bunch of battlesuits. When I see the tabletop being played, I almost exclusively see battlesuit armies. In fact, I literally don't remember the last time I saw a combined arms army on the tabletop. These maybe have 1 or 2 units of Fire Warriors and Devilfish. Even Marker Lights don't even exist really anymore, so you don't really need Pathfinders, they just make you ignore cover, I guess. Gone are the days of combined arms and a faction that was distinguishable from other sci-fi settings. And in are the days of a generic battlesuit army that would fit perfectly fine in just about any anime or any sci-fi setting. Auxiliaries are all but forgotten unless you want to play a full Kroot army, and the rules are clearly poised towards battlesuits. The Kroot release was such an odd thing to me, because it was so exciting that the Kroot are getting new models, but then you're supposed to play a full Kroot army instead of the classic 1 or 2 units in the Tau army, but of course that would mean people were only buying 1 or 2 units to put in their Tau army, and all of a sudden this makes sense why you're supposed to play a full Kroot army so they can sell the entire model range. Along with this, on the battlesuit side of things, a giant lumbering storm surge is certainly neat, and there's nothing wrong with liking its design. It just makes no sense. Why would the Tau employ this big waddling gun platform when they already have hammerheads? What is the point of a Riptide when a squad of crisis suits can do essentially the same thing with more flexibility? Don't get me wrong, I love the Riptide, I have Riptide, it's an awesome model, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Ghost Skill kind of makes sense as it's a larger stealth suit that can carry heavy firepower while remaining stealthy, but alas. Tau advancement used to look like new weapon systems and alloys for suits. The air-bursting fragment projector, the cyclic ion blaster, the rail rifle, the iridium armor, all being examples. Along with this, you had different XV variants. They were the same size as the XV suits, they were just different kinds. None of these things really created entirely new units, except for a few distinct ones, but they gave you more options, and they gave your battlesuits more life and more fun to play with. The different crisis suits were very rare and unique and seen as completely new experimental developments that, again, were very rare to see. The vast battlesuit armies were only really seen as one playstyle, and were generally played in the Farsight enclaves. I don't think I even need to talk about the loss of war gear options and the streamlining of battlesuit weapons, because, well, I think we all know how sad that is. You probably get what I'm saying. The Tau's image was that of a varied force with high maneuverability and firepower, bringing with them gameplay that can range from simple gun lines to complicated transport and battleship maneuvers. The units work together to create one machine of war just as the Tau people do. Now the focus seems to be entirely on battlesuits, and of course, you can choose to play with the old style, it is just rarely seen and the rules don't always favor it. If you like the new Tau, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that they're bad or lame or any of that. They are cool, I just don't believe them to be the same faction that the Tau used to be, and I can kind of see them in any setting instead of just in 40k, and the mech army kind of just fits better in Gundam, and on that note, my friend actually has a Gundam-themed Tau army, and is very cool. If you feel the same way or think differently from me, I'd love to hear it. I'd be interested to know if people think the Tau actually went in the right direction and got better, especially with the lore. I would like to hear if anyone thinks the new lore is actually better than the old lore. I don't think I've really met anyone who thinks that, but if you think that, feel free to comment. Nothing wrong with that. We have been recently blessed with some good writing, finally, from an author who seems to actually like the Tau, and this book would be The Elemental Council by Noah Van Nguyen. I don't know how to say that name. Nguyen. Check it out regardless, it's really good. Along with that, I recommend reading just old Tau books. Firecast is a classic that people really like. Fire Warrior is an insane book. It's very fun, it's very awesome, it's very silly, it's very grimdark. It's quite a classic. It's one of my first favorite books ever as a kid. Super cool, super recommend it. And then the Taros campaign, an old Imperial armor book, which you can likely find the PDF to online. That's what I did. It's maybe one of the coolest books in 40k. Just shows a lot of logistics, how the Imperium works, how the Tau's warfare works. It's really cool. I'm going to be making a video on that. The script is over 40 pages though, so it's going to take a while. Anyways, I will be posting the video on Aon Shi soon, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to check out Secondhand Geek for all your 40k needs. I hope you enjoyed the video. I love you guys. See you in the next one. You'll also have to forgive my setup, as I've recently moved, so it's getting there. We're missing a few things back there, but that's okay.